Hello, everybody. This is the Formula One Digest. I'm your host, Tyson De Silva, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mark, reacting to the race weekend at Imola. Mark, what a race. What a weekend. Let's break it down.
Yeah, so it's our first sprint race weekend. In my own personal opinion, I am a huge fan of the sprint race format with the new points. I just think the whole weekend was pretty much amazing. The racing was good on Saturday. The racing was even better on Sunday. Mixed conditions. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the sprint races?
Yeah, no, I think that this one might have been the best sprint race that I've watched. I know that we got a really entertaining one last year in Brazil when Lewis went. I think it was from like last to second or something, or like seventh. He had some crazy F1 sprint, but yeah, no, this one was thoroughly entertaining. You know, you have Max Verstappen who was on pole position for it and then loses it with a bad start to Charles. He chases him down, and then the last few laps he finally kind of overtakes Charles to secure pole for the race. And yeah, no, overall it was thoroughly entertaining. And yeah, I think this might have been one of the most entertaining race weekends we've had in 2022 so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to think that it's just our fourth race of the season, that's staggering. Like, we've already had the commentators of the races say, like, this is just absolutely ridiculous how well this season has started off, especially with the new regulations. You're never sure if they're going to work out or how they're going to play out. But I think that the formula that they have this season is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that whoever made those decisions made the right calls, because this, obviously Australia aside, I think Australia has been the worst race of the 2022 season so far. But I think that this one is probably just above both Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Great race, great action. And it wasn't just between the top two drivers on the grid. All around there were overtakes galore.
Yeah, no, I think the cars this year does absolutely make overtaking a lot better and a lot more fun to watch, because you can see when the cars are, following behind the other cars, and you just know that they're going to be able to mount an overtaking opportunity. And even if they don't, they're able to try harder this year than they were in seasons past for those overtakes.
Definitely. And this was super evident up at like almost at the start of the race how different these starts are, because you had so many different people moving up and down the grid. Charles had a terrible start to the race, and then you had Max and Sergio Perez who were in the 1-2, and Lando was third. Charles pretty easily worked himself back into third place. And then another underrated, I think, weekend was for George Russell, who I believe finished in P4.
Yeah, that was one of the talking points I think we should talk about, is just how well George has been performing in that Mercedes compared to just how poorly Lewis has handled the car this season.
Definitely. And you heard it at the end of the race with Toto saying, this car was undrivable, and coming and was apologizing to Lewis. It seemed pretty drivable for George Russell. I know they have they have their own kind of preferences on their cars and stuff in some technical aspects, but George Russell has basically taken maybe the best worst car he's ever driven in his career, and has never finished lower than P5 so far this season.
Yeah, that's a staggering stat. just to think how the cars were when he was at Williams, and how well he was performing. Mr. Saturday, really pushing. Sorry, go ahead.
He got P2 in Spa over Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. In a Williams. And that's just staggering to see how well he's able to push a car to the limit that shouldn't be working that well. Like, the Williams should never have been able to work as well as he was making them work. And like the Mercedes this year, he's doing exactly the same thing, albeit at the factory team, and he's pushing that car that Lewis isn't able to push. And we all thought Lewis was one of the greatest drivers of this generation, but he is not able to perform at the same level that George Russell is.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that Lewis had said this himself, but this was just a weekend to forget for him. Didn't do really well in qualifying, didn't really do well in the sprint, and then overall I just had a terrible race as well. Stuck behind Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon for, I believe, most of the race. He kind of got caught in a DRS train between because Gasly was also trying to take over on Albon, who surprisingly was able to hold on to that spot, I think. But yeah, no, it was just a terrible weekend for him. And I think probably the lowest point, as Nico Rosberg was very excited almost to mention, was Max Verstappen overtaking Lewis and getting lapped.
Yeah, just before we move on, I think another surprising thing for me was Pierre Gasly's performance this weekend in comparison to Yuki Tsunoda, who was able to score points. What's happening with Pierre? Do you think that, with the first few races of the season, do you really think that, Red Bull is even going to consider, bringing him back at any point? Or do you think his time is up?
No, I think he definitely has a spot with the Red Bull team. I think that they like him enough that they've kept on bringing him back. But the start to his year has been pretty atrocious. He had a DNF in Bahrain. He hasn't really had that stunning of a weekend in Saudi Arabia or in Australia. And this one, when you're struggling to get behind to get ahead of a Williams, I don't know. It just he hasn't put it together yet. And, there's obviously talks about who will be Verstappen's teammate for the future and even just next year, because that seat is open. I'm fully willing to give it to Sergio Perez because he is outperformed what he did last year alone. Ever since, I think, his amazing lap or two against Lewis in Abu Dhabi, this dude has just been on a different level. He carried that momentum into 2022. I think he was primed for a P4, P3 finish in Bahrain before his issues. And then he was looking really good in Saudi Arabia in qualifying, and then obviously that didn't really work out. He got a podium in Australia and now getting another podium in Imola. I honestly think that they should go all in on Sergio again because this car has responded so well to his driving style.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that where he's been in the team and they've had a little bit more continuity, he's really had some inputs on how he likes the car to handle. And I think that's really, really helping out the Red Bull team this year.
Oh yeah, and I do want to talk about the 1-2 from Red Bull. Ferrari's backyard, as I think Crofty said, they went to Ferrari's backyard and they basically got a 1-2 on an atrocious weekend for Ferrari. And the car was, I think, great, but are there still a lot of question marks around the Red Bull reliability after this weekend?
Yeah, I wouldn't be too hot to trot just yet on the Red Bull reliability. I still think that there are some unanswered questions. Unanswered to us. Maybe they're answered to the drivers and the rest of the team. But I still think there might be some underlying issues that might not necessarily be answered yet. And, we have to be cautiously optimistic for the Red Bull team, not looking so like, oh yeah, they're going to come back and, surprise us by the end of the season, because, there's still a good chance that Ferrari's the team to beat, and that, Red Bull's reliability issues aren't all answered yet.
Yeah, I think it's a small sample size for Red Bull, but it's a good result, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like Max did get a grand slam this weekend. It's the second grand slam of the season, with Leclerc getting one in Australia, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, which I think is kind of further pushing how this is going to be a Max versus Charles year. If that Red Bull can be a reliable car throughout the next stretch of races, starting in Miami now, you're going to be looking at a very tight drivers' championship.
Yeah, and even George Russell, he might even, throw some wins or second places into that mix too. So, it could be like a 3-4 way battle even between Sergio.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like we could have like 4 different drivers, vying for the title by the end of the year if Sergio keeps up his performances, which it looks like he will be, and George Russell just being very, very, very consistent with that horrible Mercedes car. And it's looking like this season with these new regulations is just going to be one to remember.
Definitely. And you got Haas, who also had a great weekend. Obviously, Kevin Magnussen lost a lot of places from where he started, but he still gets some valuable points at P8. And it's an exciting time if you're a Haas fan, because obviously he's there kind of trending on the upwards. You feel bad for Mick Schumacher, who kind of had a good start of the week and then kind of had some bad luck during the race. But a driver you have to feel for is the Ferrari's Carlos Sainz. Such a doozy of a weekend for him, Mark.
Yeah, like what a disaster. 2 race weekends in a row where Carlos Sainz has not been able to put it together during the race, having that horrible first or second lap incident in Melbourne, and then a first lap exit out of Imola.
First turn, I think.
No, it was first turn. First turn in the first chicane, just punted out beached by Daniel Ricciardo. None of his fault, but getting beached in the sand trap. Are there cracks starting to show in Ferrari's armor? Like, are they not as, well put together as we originally had thought?
No, I think it's an interesting topic of conversation, just because they had a hot start to the season. A lot of it was luck in the first race because of the Red Bulls DNFs. They had a really strong lead in the constructors, and even in Australia, Charles got some even more luck in terms of extending his lead because Max had to stop his car. But this was just a terrible weekend if you're a Ferrari fan and on your home turf. Like, you might be wanting a refund, because what a disappointing weekend, man. Like, Carlos, you would think that Carlos would have had a higher finish with after having such a exciting start to the week, signing that 2-year extension, and then I think it was in qualifying, he crashes the car. In the sprint, he has minimal luck. And then, in the race, he just is out on turn one, no fault of his own, but that wasn't good. And then as to add to the Ferrari, I guess the Ferrari drama, Charles Leclerc, who's looking at a solid P3 finish, he kind of goes over a curb a little too much and then spins out and loses a lot of places, and he loses some valuable points in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. And that could just go to show like Charles is still a young driver. He's not as experienced as someone like Daniel Ricciardo, who's been in the sport since 2014, no, 2013, or like a Sebastian Vettel, who's been in the sport for a very long time, or even a Fernando Alonso. Charles is still very, very young in this sport. And so is Carlos. Carlos has been in it for slightly longer than Charles has. But, they're still very young drivers promoted to such a top tier team. You could come to question whether or not they were ready for it. Well, obviously they're great drivers, but, that's a lot of pressure to be in one of F1's most historic and successful teams. We've seen it before with Sebastian Vettel. He was trying to win the championships with Ferrari, but all of the years that he was with them, he was never able to do it. He was never able to pull it all together and really mount a great title charge like he wanted to. And, Ferrari has been, in the last few years, historically throwing things away, exactly like how the Lakers have in the NBA.
Yeah, no, it was just a nightmare of a weekend for them. And I think that, it's I think it's also how you separate some of the drivers. Like you look at a Max Verstappen who, you know, loses a place to Charles Leclerc in the sprint. Kind of hangs back a bit, but still kind of stays close to the DRS zone. As soon as Charles's tires kind of burn out, that's when Max made his move and it looked to pay off. And I think that almost shows that champion kind of mentality or experience. You know, Max knows what it takes to win, what it takes to win. He's done it before, and he could very well just do it again. Because he is still a very young driver as well. But I think that that's how you kind of separate Max and Charles, is that Max has the experience and the almost the just the experience to know how to win in different situations. And Charles himself even said that he got greedy trying to get the P2 and then ended up spinning out and losing even more points.
Yeah, that's the maturity factor that I was mentioning. And you know what? It is what it is. I'm sure Charles will, bounce back from it and pull together some races in the next few rounds. Yeah, I'm sure it's not the end, but certainly don't want to be making those same mistakes over and over and over again, because those will start to compound. And, that's how you lose championships, if you keep making small mistakes like that.
Definitely. But in his stead for P3 was one Lando Norris, who got his first podium of the season. And McLaren, man, they are coming up. They are looking strong. If Daniel hadn't had contact with Carlos, then they would have both been looking at a top 10 finish, I think. But yeah, no, it was quite a weekend for McLaren, who's been underratedly just been making waves. They had a solid showing in Australia, and even better showing now in Imola. Could McLaren sneak up and make a run for a championship?
Maybe not this season. Definitely P3 in the championship if Mercedes start to fall apart a bit more. I'm hoping to see Haas and McLaren, because it kind of seems, the same situation. You have one of your drivers, Kevin Magnussen and Lando Norris, doing well, scoring points, or just on the brink of points, P9, P10, for Kevin, and P5 or 6 between there with Lando, and your other drivers, and Daniel and Mick, who might not always be in the points. If they can get both of their drivers in the points, maybe it could be a battle for P3 between McLaren and Haas. And I'd be looking forward to seeing that battle on track. I think P3 is a very good possibility if they get their stuff together. It was kind of disappointing to see at the beginning of the season, how much trouble they were having. But yeah, it's a bit of a resurgence now for McLaren, and it'll be a question to see if they can, really keep on this momentum.
Definitely. And I think that, maybe not a championship, but they can definitely make a lot of trouble for the championship teams in Ferrari and Red Bull. And yeah, no, I think it would be really exciting to see a Haas podium for this year, something that we haven't seen. And, I know it would really help out my boy Gunther. But yeah, no, I think that Haas and McLaren fight would be really cool. And even if Mercedes is in the background, they're still gaining points. It could be a really close battle for that P3 and winner of the midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just excited. I'm just hoping and praying that McLaren don't fall apart this season and, continue this momentum.
Yeah, and it was also I also wanted to briefly mention that it was a great weekend for Aston Martin, who had Seb and Lance both finishing for points.
Yeah, I was just about to write them off, but Seb bounces back at a conventional circuit. Maybe a little bit more recovered from COVID than he was at Melbourne. But it's great to see that Aston Martin team really do well, better than they were in the first 3 races.
Oh, definitely. And I think that, when you have Sebastian Vettel, who was P8, and Lance Stroll, who was P10, obviously it's not a lot of points, but it's kind of putting them in the right direction to hopefully make some noise later this season. Sebastian Vettel is a fan favorite among a lot of people, so I know a lot of people would like to see him kind of succeed. And who knows, he could very well just retire at the end of the year, but I don't think anyone would want to see Seb go out the way that go out with a consistent weekend like he did, like in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Baku coming up. The Aston
that will be
Martins
really
have been
fun.
Historically good there, and yeah, really, really fun race. Maybe he can even pull out another surprise podium.
Yeah, we'll need Max and Lewis to both just crash out. No, but I think that it's definitely going to be an exciting season, and I'm looking forward to the Miami race that's coming up next in I think 2 weeks.
I know Miami is going to be awesome. That street circuit is looking amazing. I've seen some of the photos. I watched that Red Bull short film that they made with Checo. It's looking awesome already.
Yeah, no, it's going to be an exciting weekend. Hopefully we get to see a couple of crazy outfits too. Just because it's Miami, they could go for a Miami Vice theme if they want to be creative. Maybe some liveries, who knows? It could be an exciting weekend. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. If you guys have made it this far, thank you very much for watching. If you guys liked the video, please click like. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And we will see you guys before the Miami Grand Prix.